No one ever told her no, not her employees, not her board members, not even the people who claimed to care about her. Margaret Hayes, one of the wealthiest women in New York, was known for two things: her power and her temper. People feared her more than they respected her. She owned buildings, companies, and even had politicians under her thumb. But one cold December morning, everything changed inside a small café downtown. Because that was the day a single dad, a man with no money, no fame, and no fear, looked her right in the eye and said, "Ma'am, sit down." What happened next? No one in that café would ever forget. Hey everyone, welcome back to Soft Soul Stories, the place where we share heart-touching stories that remind us how powerful kindness can be. If you love stories that inspire, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, kindness spreads and it starts with you. The snow was falling hard that morning. The city felt unusually quiet for New York. Inside Benson's cafe, the smell of coffee and fresh cinnamon rolls filled the air. At a small corner table sat Tom Reed, a single dad in his mid-30s. His clothes were simple, worn from years of hard work. Across from him sat Lily, his 7-year-old daughter. Her bright blue eyes sparkled beneath a pink winter hat that looked a little too big for her head. They came here every Saturday morning. It was their special tradition. Tom couldn't afford much, but a small hot chocolate and a muffin for Lily meant the world to them both. That morning, Lily was drawing on a napkin. "Daddy," she said, showing him her little sketch. A big heart with 2 stick figures inside. "That's us. You and me," Tom smiled. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." Just then, the cafe door swung open. Cold wind rushed in as a woman in a white fur coat stepped inside, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Everyone turned to look. It was Margaret Hayes, the billionaire CEO of Hayes Global, a company that practically owned half the city. She didn't just walk in, she took over the room. Even the manager hurried to her table without being called. She sat by the window, pulled out her phone, and started barking orders. "No," I said, "move the meeting to noon. And tell security to keep the press out. I don't care what it costs." Her voice cut through the quiet cafe like a blade. The barista behind the counter looked nervous as she made Margaret's complicated coffee order. Moments later, an elderly man with a cane came in. His name was Mr. Clark, a retired school teacher who came every morning to read the newspaper and sip a single cup of black coffee. But today, the cafe was full. Every table was taken, except for one empty chair, right at Margaret Hayes' table. The waitress walked over, hesitant. "Ma'am, would you mind if this gentleman sits here? Just for a little while?" Margaret didn't even look up. "No, absolutely not. I don't share tables." The waitress looked helplessly at Mr. Clark, who stood there clutching his cane, embarrassed. I understand, ma'am," she said softly. Mr. Clark nodded politely. "It's quite all right, dear." He turned to leave, but before he could, Tom stood up. "Sir," he called gently, "you can take my seat." Lily looked up, surprised. "Daddy, what about you?" Tom smiled. "I'll stand." "It's okay, sweetheart." Mr. Clark's eyes softened. "That's very kind of you, young man." "Thank you." As the old man sat down, Tom placed a hand on Lily's shoulder and whispered, "Always help people when you can." Margaret, still on her phone, rolled her eyes. "Some people are just too sentimental," she muttered. Tom heard her but stayed quiet. Still, something inside him stirred. A few minutes later, the waitress brought Margaret's coffee, a complex order that had taken nearly 10 minutes to make. Margaret took one sip and frowned. "This isn't hot enough," she snapped. "Do it again." The waitress apologized and rushed to fix it. Lily frowned. "Daddy," she whispered, "that lady's being mean." Tom nodded slowly. "Sometimes people forget what kindness looks like," he said softly. "Maybe they just need a reminder." When the waitress brought back the new coffee, Margaret waved her away without even saying thank you. Then, as Mr. Clark adjusted his cane, he accidentally bumped her table. A few drops of coffee spilled onto the edge of her coat. Margaret's eyes flashed. "Watch where you're going, old man." The cafe went silent. Mr. Clark froze, trembling. "I'm terribly sorry, ma'am," but Margaret wasn't done. "Sorry doesn't fix my coat. Do you have any idea how much this costs?" People looked down, pretending not to notice. No one wanted to get involved. No one, except Tom. He took a deep breath, stood up, and calmly walked over. "Ma'am," he said firmly but respectfully, "please sit down." The entire cafe went silent. Margaret blinked in disbelief. "Excuse me?" Tom looked her straight in the eye. "You don't have to talk to him like that." He didn't mean it. "You could just be kind." For a moment, Margaret's face hardened. No one had ever dared to speak to her that way. But something about Tom, his calm voice, his steady tone, made her pause. "Do you know who I am?" she asked coldly. Tom smiled slightly. "No," he said, "but I know who he is. He's someone's father, someone's friend, and someone who deserves respect, just like you." The room was silent except for the ticking clock on the wall. Then Lily's small voice broke the silence. "Miss," she said softly, "you shouldn't yell. It makes people sad." Margaret turned toward the little girl. For the first time, her expression softened. "Sad?" she repeated quietly. Lily nodded. "My daddy says when people are sad, we should be extra nice to them." Margaret blinked, once, twice, and then suddenly, her eyes filled with tears. She hadn't cried in years. I'm sorry," she stammered, turning to Mr. Clark. "That was uncalled for." The old man smiled kindly. "It's quite all right, dear. We all have our moments," Tom nodded. "That's how kindness works," he said softly. "It fixes what pride breaks." Margaret sat back down, quieter this time. Then almost shyly, she said, Would you both sit with me?" Tom looked surprised, then smiled. "Sure." And so they sat, the billionaire, the single dad, the old man, and the little girl, all sharing one table in a small New York cafe. The waitress brought them fresh cups of coffee. And for the first time in years, Margaret Hayes laughed. Not a polite or fake laugh, a real one. That morning changed something inside her. A week later, Benson's Cafe received a large anonymous donation, enough to cover free meals for every senior citizen in the neighborhood for an entire year. But everyone knew who it was from. A few weeks after that, Margaret launched a new program through her company, one that helped single parents find jobs. She even invited Tom to help lead it. He tried to refuse. "I'm not qualified," he said, but Margaret smiled. "You stood up when no one else would." That's leadership, Tom accepted, and his life changed. Not because he stood up to a billionaire, but because he reminded her of something she had forgotten: humanity. Months later, on another snowy morning, Tom and Lily returned to Benson's Cafe. This time, when they went to pay, the waitress smiled and said, "It's on the house, Ms. Hayes insists." They turned and saw Margaret sitting by the window waving at them. Lily waved back. "Daddy, she's nice now," Tom chuckled. "Yeah, sweetheart. Sometimes people just need someone brave enough to remind them how." And as they sat there at the billionaire, the single dad, and his little girl, the cafe felt a little warmer that morning, because kindness really does have the power to change even the coldest hearts. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that kindness still matters. Thanks for watching Your Channel Name, where every story reminds us that one small act of courage can change the world.